What's up guys, Derek, moreplateSmartAids.com. We are back making videos, bro. This is an interesting, almost deja vu moment for me because last year I had a very similar, almost identical outcome where I took a really long break and then interestingly enough came back on January 26th with a video called Where I've Been, ... And in that video, I describe my hiatus, going on the Joe Rogan podcast, the other podcasts I did, what I was doing with my time off. And I was like, damn, I have clearly not planned well enough my year because the same reasons that I got backlogged last year are the same reasons I'm backlogged this year. And my hiatus this time was not so much a break necessarily. It was more catching up on months of emails, unfortunately. Accounting stuff, tedious back-end stuff, corporate infrastructure. A lot of it requires oversight and oftentimes gets put on the back burner when you're making content. And that is actually one of the things I want to really dial in over the next year. It's like really being able to, in what I deem to be a satisfactory way, achieve a cadence of regular content whilst not getting behind on emails, whilst overseeing companies and continuing product dev on Gorilla Mind and whatnot, while still getting my workouts in. Like this year has been an interesting one because it's probably been the most I've ever prioritized. Like, I guess I can't say I've worked less hard in previous years because it's been just a grind for years now, but I definitely did put the companies over the content in some capacity. And in addition, in some ways, even my workouts, like this is the least I've worked out in the past year and I need to get back on it, dude. Like this is a cadence of 4 times a week was typical for me at minimum. And this year, there's been multiple times where I've fallen off the bandwagon. So that is one of my 23 obligations to myself is to get back in there with regular workouts. When you actually break down how many hours it is in a week, it's really not a significant chunk of your time. It should be something that you're making time for. And one of the biggest errors I've seen entrepreneurs make that get very, very in the trenches of focusing entirely on success metrics is they will start to neglect their own health as they deem that next meeting or getting that, the 5 emails sitting there knocked out or, fill in the blank fire they have to put out within, whatever organization. That stuff superseding your health shouldn't happen realistically. Like the gym, high quality sleep, diet should all be the infrastructure that cannot be compromised. And then the other stuff is layered on top. And is how it should work and is what I'm going to get back to. Sometimes these end of year scenarios are kind of a reality check where you kind of reflect back on your year and you see kind of where there were holes and you kind of think of resolutions and things like that. I've never traditionally done like my New Year's resolution is fill in the blank, but I think having concrete goals set out for the year is important. And I think that for me, just achieving a balance that is sustainable and has a regular cadence of achieving what I deem to be satisfactory work quality across the board is something I am going to strive for this year. But as far as reflecting on my 2022 and I don't know, just like how it, just everything that happened, it was a lot of back end infrastructure, trying to get a lot of things set up that frankly, as you get deeper into entrepreneurship and whatnot, especially if you have fast growing companies, you start to identify there's work that can be done essentially in perpetuity, unfortunately. So it's almost just like, where do you draw the line at some point? So a lot of this year was grinding out meetings, doing a lot of back end stuff, and just setting the companies up for success moving into 2023, which is what I'm very much looking forward to seeing unfold in real time, because it was a successful year, but it was a bit of a slow year, I guess, in 22 for front-facing massive moves, so to speak. Like we're looking at a very, very aggressive rollout of product development in Gorilla Mind, which I'm very excited for because it's stuff that I've been impatient as hell to get out. And I've spent like all of 2022 working on, but I haven't been able to actually like physically get out yet. When Merrick is quickly expanding and it's going great. I feel like I'm saying the same thing as last year a little bit, but it is similar to last year. The growth has been amazing. A lot of it is, thanks to you guys as well for believing in the stuff I'm doing and supporting it and whatnot. And as the year progressed, I did actually take a vacation, which is notable. Something that I have typically neglected is taking personal time to do anything realistically. And I went to Europe with my girlfriend and spent a couple weeks we went to Dublin first in Ireland, and then we went to Rome in Italy. than Paris, France. And one thing, I was considering making a video about this entirely, but the reason that I believe a lot of Europeans weigh less is a lot of people, they say the food quality is so much better in Italy, in France, etc. And this is typically coming from, I don't know, like this could be, you know, just generalizing entirely, but for me, tourists I often see say this. And what I've noticed is vegetables. Do you eat them or do you not? Because I fucking don't. That's why I have this. Just kidding. You should actually eat your vegetables. But alternatively, if you're like me and you don't want to spend the time buying them, fucking washing them, cleaning up after yourself, eating a giant salad, that's where this comes into play. This is my daily green supplement that I've been using for a while now. Athletic Greens, they've been a prominent sponsor on the channel at this point. And to be honest, if I'm getting a fraction of the benefits in 2 seconds, I highly value that as a hyper busy, probably spread too thin individual who probably needs to prioritize their time a little bit better, to be honest. Like it's fucking how it is, dude. So for me, this makes it 1,000 times easier to get my greens. I put it into a shaker cup, shake it up, boom, 2 seconds down the hatch. Beats the hell out of sitting there and eating a salad for 20 minutes and getting it ready and all that shit and going to the grocery store, getting it. I used to plow through like an entire container of greens every single day. At this point, I'm fucking over it, you know? Maybe I'll get back to it at some point, but for me, this is my go-to right now, and this is why it's a sponsor on the channel. I think it's a good formula overall. They have gone through multiple iterations, and they are clearly staying on top of the literature by updating their formats of their, like for example, it's not just a greens formula. They also have a complex of vitamins and minerals, probiotics, adaptogens, antioxidants, superfood complex, digestive enzymes, and mushroom complex. And they use the most bioavailable formats of all the vitamins that they're using and the highest quality minerals. In addition, they have this free year supply of D3 and K2. They use MK7 in here. Like there's very clear ways for me to tell if a company is actually giving a shit about what's going in their product, if they're staying on top of nutritional literature as it evolves and comes out. And this is a brand that is staying on top of their game when it comes to making sure their product is constantly getting better over time. If you're interested, you can check it out. The link is in the description below. It will be athleticgreens.com/Derek. And that link will bring you to the landing page where you can get a free 1-year supply of D3K2, as well as 5 free travel packs of this when you buy your AG1, and back to the regularly scheduled programming. Even when I was eating what would be objectively like shitty, eating like pizza, pasta, gelato, etc. all day, the amount of steps I was getting was so disproportionately high compared to me sitting in my office in Canada. It was like 25,000, 30,000 steps on some days with the amount of sightseeing we were doing, going around, literally walking essentially everywhere. Whereas here, I might have some days where like my step count is 10,000 is my goal, but oftentimes, like this past year mostly, I haven't been hitting that like I want to be. And that is gonna change in this year. It's one of my goals, like I said. But that in itself made it so much easier to stick to your weight goals and stay within like what would be considered a maintenance calories. Like you could eat essentially whatever you want within reason if you're decently muscled, have good nutrient partitioning, exercise with some regularity, and are getting a fuck ton of low intensity, steady state cardio in. Like it's pretty hard to gain excessive amounts of weight, especially when you're keeping yourself busy. The problem with working in a sedentary environment like an office is you have such ease of access to the fridge and the pantry and the whatever, and you're getting less steps in because your job doesn't require you to move around and whatnot. And it's basically just going to the gym for an hour, a handful of times a week, and your cardio if you actually dedicate blocks of time to it, but you're very infrequently actually actively exercising during your daily activities, just like subconsciously, so to speak, because it's just part of what you're doing. So that was one of the things I noticed for sure, is that I didn't need to go for like scheduled 10-minute walks or anything after eating. I was just like doing so much stuff that it would just happen on its own. And it wasn't just 10-minute walks, it was hours, several hours of walking. I got really lucky with the weather while I was there. I had like no ugly days, no nothing. It was on the tail end of summer too, so it wasn't as busy as would be typical. And it was really cool. It was a good experience. I'm glad I went. We really enjoyed ourselves. Ate a lot of awesome food. And I do think the food quality is probably better, actually, by the way. But I think that the actual caloric intake of what I was eating relative to the energy expenditure, like I would say that the steps were the main needle mover in me staying leaner during that trip. Like one of the things I've noticed too is people who get fat after high school similar tangent, but oftentimes they think their metabolism has crashed, but in reality, they're just sedentary now, whereas they used to do PE, they would play sports, they would walk everywhere. All of these things that contributed to like a, 15, 20,000 step count per day. And now they're walking 2,000 steps and driving to and from the office or whatever it is and wondering why they're gaining weight. And it's like, your caloric surplus could compound on itself. Like, keep in mind, a pound of fat is what, 3,500 calories or something? So even if you're in just like a 100 calorie surplus, that surplus over time, you're in a 700 calorie surplus per week. Then every 4 weeks, you're in a 2,800 calorie surplus overall. After that 4-week interval, you've literally accumulated 2,800 in excess. And after some time, like by the end of the year, just by that little 100 calorie increase over maintenance, which is nothing essentially. It could be the equivalent of you walking for like, I don't know, like however many minutes less per day. That by the end of the year could cumulatively add like, I don't know, a handful to 10, like 7 or 8 pounds or something in fat that you didn't have otherwise. Like, you can see how this insidiously fucks a lot of people and they don't realize why. And they think their metabolism's just shit the bed, when in reality, they're just not tracking effectively. And that is something that I knew, but I really, really noticed during this Europe trip. But other than, fitness related stuff, the sites were awesome. I got to see pretty much everything. I was pretty surprised to see how much stuff just pops up out of nowhere and isn't necessarily on like the sites you got to see when you're Googling, like, what should I go see when I'm in Rome? Like, we would walk into a random church and just see like a gorgeous church that wasn't even on our to-do list. It was pretty cool to see. I'm actually half Italian too, which a lot of people don't know, but so it's cool to go to the homeland or whatever. Check out a lot of the things I've heard from that side of the family over my entire life, but never had the opportunity to go look at in person. St. Peter's Basilica, the Colosseum, obviously, like a lot of stuff that was really, really a sight to behold, and seeing it on the internet or in movies just doesn't do it justice. Seeing it in person is highly recommended. I actually had a lot of people come up to me too, which is pretty fucking crazy, is across the planet having somebody come up to you in the middle of like a church in Rome and being like, yo, are you Derek? More plates, more dates? Just like, yeah, what's good? And taking a picture or whatnot and just shooting the shit. So that was pretty cool to see. I mean, it happened in Dublin, Rome, as well as Paris, which was really, really wild that it's like the channel has spread that far. So really awesome. And yeah, the trip was overall a success, I would say. Interestingly enough, the best pizza I had was actually at a place in Dublin, which was unexpected, but maybe my palate is too westernized to have appreciated the Italian pizza as much. Very, very low on the cold cuts and meats on the actual pizza. It's just kind of like margarita style, like thin crust pizzas essentially, which it's fucking good, don't get me wrong, but I guess I'm more of it's almost like when you've been hyper exposed to absurd amounts of sugar or something, and then something that is seen as like a healthy alternative might be nearly unpalatable to you because you're so used to like the junkiest, like most brain stimulating version of it. So maybe I'm just too used to like pizzas in Canada or something. So I don't know, but overall food was great. Sites were awesome. Checked a lot of things off my bucket list, and definitely probably would do it again. To be honest, I would probably go visit those spots again. But if you have any other recommendations of where my next stop should be, let me know. I am extremely untraveled, and I definitely gotta make up for lost time on that a little bit. And what else this year? The business stuff was great. Leading to the end of the year, obviously there was the Liver King debacle, which was a fucking sight to behold. And apparently the guy is like almost a month natty at this point. So it should be interesting to see how that unfolds and how he handles his, post-cycle recovery, so to speak. I might do a video on that entirely because he has started to put forth some of the, candid realities of what pulling hormones out of your system in your late 40s does to you when you've been reliant on them for years. It should be interesting to see what his recovery is like and how transparent he really is, to be determined, I guess, what the real outcome of it is. And then further to that, similar to last year, I had like a bunch of podcasts that I've really, really wanted to go on. I mean, it was cool to be able to knock some of them out at the end of the year, similar to what I did in 21. So I did Joe Rogan's podcast again, which was fucking awesome. 2021, I did it as well, and really, really cool to get back in the studio again and sit down with him. Always appreciate being able to visit with him and shoot the shit. An amazing opportunity, obviously, for me and the channel. And then after Joe's podcast, I connected with Zach Tallender and Chris Williamson, did both of their podcasts, which was cool. Zach actually was basically my chauffeur for the trip, and helped get me around, and brought me to the grocery store and stuff, which was much appreciated. And he actually, helped contribute to the creation of that the Liver King documentary as well. We got to hang out with them, do their shows, and then after that went to LA and did TMG podcast. I had actually heard of it the first time they mentioned me on the podcast. I was in Europe, and I got into Italy and had a fucking terrible experience trying to find my place in Italy. And it was like the middle of the night, and I got a notification that it was like, do more plates equal more dates. And I was like, what is this? And then I opened it up, and it was like them talking about me on the TMG podcast, which was kind of surreal because I have been fans of those guys for a long time. And like, I've talked with Noel a little bit over DM back and forth about some fitness stuff, but then seeing me brought up on their podcast, and then, a couple months later, Cody asked me to come on, and it worked out timing wise really well. So I just went straight from Texas to LA and did their show. And that was probably the most out of my comfort zone podcast I've ever done, in terms of it being like a comedy focused podcast. And I really enjoyed that one. Like, I enjoy all the podcasts I do, but that one was very, very unique, I would say, for what I typically do. And I think it turned out really well. Like, it was really fucking funny and had education in there. It was like a really strong hybrid. And I have like a bonus episode too that I did with them that's on their site. I think you guys would enjoy it if you haven't seen it. And then after that, I flew over to Sacramento and did Mark Bell's podcast, connected with Thomas DeLauer too, and did some in-person stuff with him. And it's cool because a lot of these guys, like, I talk to online, but in Canada, I'm kind of like on my little island up here. I don't actually get to meet up with a lot of people in person. So when I fly to the States and I get to, meet up with all these people that I've spoken to or have watched their content or interacted with in some capacity at some point, but never got the chance to actually like meet face to face, it's really fucking cool to sit down and just shoot the shit. I also went to Max Tuning's podcast when I was in Texas too, and did James English Mogcast round 2, which was fun because last year I basically had to haul ass out of the podcast in the middle of it when I did it with Sush and James the first time, because I was going to miss a flight to get to Boise, Idaho. But this time I got to sit down and like actually have a full length conversation. And that is on the Mogcast channel. I think it turned out well. I think the Max Tuning one was really cool too. It was, he had a wildly professional studio. I was really impressed. It was really, really nicely set up. And when I say my surprise, it's more so because it's not like it needs to be that elaborate and insane looking, but it felt like I was on like a fucking TV show or something. It was like the most professional studio that I'd been on of all of them. Actually, I guess the Cody and Noel one is it's like a spaceship, so you could argue that one as well. But the lighting and like the background and everything, it was like it felt like I was on some sort of high-end TV show when I did the Max Tuning one. I think it turned out well as well. And then, like I said, I went to Sacramento, connected with Mark Bell, Nsima, Thomas DeLauer, and cranked out another podcast, as well as the Thomas. We did some content for his channel, and I have a video about fish oil that'll be coming out on my channel with him as well. And I think it was overall successful. It was a pretty low sleep trip. I don't think I had one night where I got my 8 hours in, but everything turned out well, nonetheless, in my opinion. And it was a successful an interesting year for sure. I'm looking forward to seeing what 23 has to come. My goals for 23 are essentially to keep grinding the way I have been, but with a more regular cadence. I don't want to be coming back next year with this same video explaining why I've been gone for 2 months. My goal is to have an assistant who can take care of all of this this stuff, so then I don't have to take breaks like this, because it physically pains me to not be able to make a video for a month and a half because I have accounting, quarterly returns due for like 4 different companies or this or that, and I have to attend to this and sign like 72 different papers and then go mail this, and like, oh, these state returns are due and you're in Canada, so you have to file those yourself through snail mail. It's like, holy fuck, dude. Not what I want to be doing. I want to be making videos, talking to you guys. So anyways, that is my year in a nutshell. Let me know how was 22 for you guys? What's on your to-do list? Is there anywhere I should be looking to travel to in 23 that you would recommend? I literally am so untraveled. I'm open to any suggestions, by the way, or even podcasts that I should go on, so I can kind of do 2 birds, 1 stone and try and, like, my goal for this year is to be way more front facing and start to do way more podcasts, because I did get a very, very positive response. Like in 2021, when I did Joe Rogan's the first podcast with them, Mogcast, and I went to Las Vegas and I did a podcast with Dan Bilzerian. That was all super well received, but it was not. This year I did more, and every time I do more, I see the response is very favorable. And that sounds so obvious, but the more podcasts that you do, the more chances of favorable responses you get with like new demographics that otherwise might have not seen your stuff. And it's like, that seems so fucking obvious, but I think it's time I actually dedicate some time to cranking out podcasts and not just have it be like this yearly cadence thing where I just like blast out like a handful of them and then call it quits for a month and a half while I try and catch up on accounting. Like my goal is to get everything dialed where I have the tedious stuff taken care of and I can actually make regular content here and get out there and not only travel, but also do podcasts at the same time. Like that would be awesome to be able to do. And that is what I hope to achieve in 2023. So that is kind of like a high level view of what my goals are for the year, how my 2022 went. Hopefully you guys found that interesting in some capacity, and back to the regular videos, bro. I have a lot of backlog topics, a lot of crazy shit that's happened that I haven't been able to comment on because I've been stuck answering emails and doing stuff on the back end business-wise, but we're back and I am going to be as regular as I can, bro. Yeah, so we'll see. I appreciate your guys' patience and also being supportive of the random shorts that are coming out. I do actually spend time manually reviewing those all myself. So even though it might seem like they're automated, I actually review all of those as well as I try and take the time to read all the subtitles too and make sure they're all correct. Sometimes some shit squeaks through the cracks, but hopefully you guys enjoy those. I really don't know if that's something I should continue doing, is the shorts, because people think that it's a good business strategy, but you'd be shocked the conversion subscribership to views on shorts is abysmal. And it makes me wonder, is the time I'm allocating to reviewing shorts, so there's a daily video in that algorithm, worthwhile when I could otherwise take that time and just make more videos talking to you guys long form? I don't really know. So that's kind of to be determined still. Let me know what you guys think of the shorts, and we'll see. It's kind of a work in progress, but that's the goal. Automate a lot of the tedious shit this year, bang out a lot more content, and just more of the same. More of the same is the goal. So anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully it wasn't too boring or, I don't know, too much random stuff that is uninteresting, but that is my life at the moment and where I see the ROI for my time, hopefully in the next year. And I'm looking forward to getting back to filming, dude. So if you liked the video, I appreciate it. Please drop a like, subscribe if you're new here, and I will talk to you guys soon.